Knowing and using the powerful guns in Apex can mean the difference between winning and losing a fight in a lot of cases. You may enjoy a certain gun, but sometimes it doesn't really stack up in the current meta, and that can lead to you dying because someone else just had a slightly better weapon. Well, hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down all the weapons in Apex for the first split of Season 12 and tell you what guns are fitting in where. Just quickly though guys, I know everyone loves the new season because the ranks reset and your grind starts all over again. Well, with Valentine's Day right around the corner, you need to check out our new partner, Manscaped, so that you can start to grind your way into a girl's DMs. Just like GameLeap is best in class for Apex tips, Manscaped is best in class for men's below the waist grooming. With their Lawnmower 4.0, your junk will be looking S tier, and because it's waterproof, you can use it in the shower and not have to worry about the bathroom floor mess. And with their ball toner and ball deodorant, your stuff will be smelling just as good. If you are like me and you play for long extended sessions, you don't want to have to worry about swamp crotch. Well, Manscaped's got you covered there. So do yourself a favor, click the link in the description, get yourself a Performance Package 4.0 and use code HOSTESS at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. With this, your Mastiff will be looking as good as a Kraber headshot feels. Now, jumping back to the guns, let's start to go over the tiers. We have in the past just used S to D tier, but right now the gun meta is actually very balanced, so for this I'm adding an S plus tier. That's just in order to help spread them out a little bit to make things a little bit more clear. And inside the specific tiers, it doesn't matter where a gun is in the order. If they're all in the same tier, they're all equal. So when I'm talking about a gun in say A tier, it doesn't matter what gun I say first, they're all A tier guns. So let's start this off with our D tier weapons, and making its way into the D tier is just the P2020 with no hammer points. The P2020 has always been in a weird spot. For most of Apex's life, it just has been a joke of a gun. Now you can actually deal some solid damage if you have a fast trigger finger, but without hammer points giving it that slight boost, it just doesn't have the punch needed to compete in the game. Now moving on to our C tier guns, these are ones that if you find them off drop, you'll be fine, but as the game goes on, you're definitely going to want to swap them out. Here you'll be looking at the Mozambique, the RE45 with no hammer points, and also the P20 with hammer points. The RE45 is the first gun we're going to take a look at here. This thing was always just a bridge between the R99 and the R301. But with no hammer points and the return of the alternator onto ground loot, this thing isn't even worth picking up at all with no hop up. With slower time to kill than all the previous mentioned weapons and no room for stock to help in longer ranges, this gun just can't really justifiably be any higher. Next, the Mozambique. This shoddy is such a strange gun because it does deal really reliable damage, typically hitting around 45s each time with a good range potential as well and great hip fire. But the reason I have it down here is because in terms of shotguns, until it has the hammer points and can be used to finish off fights, it doesn't have the damage to be that heavy hitter in fights like you need it to be. If you go in a fight versus say another shotgun with no hammer points, you will typically be losing the fight, and that's why I'm putting this one so low. And last in this tier, we have the P20 with hammer points. Now, this gun isn't actually that bad. The P20 is pretty good with hammer points and has a fairly fast time to kill. But with the hammer points being better on the other two guns, this really is only an attachment holder for until you find one of the others. It is nice to be able to spam someone down in fights, but with the new changed hammer points, they have a lot more time to shoot back and kill you before you can crack their shields, leaving a lot to be desired for the gun and why I'm putting it here. Now moving on to the B tier, we have the guns that you can use and they will be good enough and they have potential, but they fall off in certain areas. For this, we're looking at the Eve 8, the Bocek, the L-Star, the R99, the Sentinel, and the RE45 with hammer points. The Eva did see some nerfs in the past that completely gutted it. It's now a shoddy that is really only useful on drop. After that, you're going to be outgunned by a lot of other guns. It is nice to be able to spam shots out with good hipfire in fights, but the lack of damage on it now can get you killed very easy and lead to this gun not being any higher on the tier list. Now, the Bocek, very much like the Eva, this one used to be an absolute powerhouse with everyone and their grandmother running it. but now it's only somewhat good. If you're able to hit headshots, it definitely does hurt, but it doesn't compete with the other marksman rifles, and it also doesn't have the range that sniper rifles do. So this is more of a mid-tier gun, and the others will be able to outgun it in the mid-range as well, so this is where the tier list has it. Keeping on the once good now meh train, we have the L-Star. I don't think since it's been nerfed anyone actually uses this gun. I was tempted to put it lower, but it still can surprise me every now and then with the headshot damage it can do. This gun really isn't worth running at all right now in comparison to almost every other gun in the game. It's kind of back to its meme status. Next up, the R99. Since its return from the care package, the R9 hasn't been able to keep up in the meta. It has low per bullet damage, actually the lowest in the game, and with that you have low damage potential in the magazine. You aren't even able to one-clip a red armor Gibraltar with this gun, unless you're hitting every single bullet in the mag. With opening shot advantage, in most cases you will be losing your fights. Now for the sniper in this tier, we have the Sentinel. The Sentinel can hit very hard and in some cases feel like a mini Kraber, but it has a very slow fire rate, meaning unless you're able to catch someone in the perfect scenario, you're going to be missing a lot of opportunities to kill with how long it takes to shoot again. With that lack of kill potential, I just can't put it any higher on the list, so here it stays. And lastly for this tier, we have the RE45 with hammer points. I'm going to be honest, I'm severely disappointed with how these turned out. I thought 100% they were going to be a lot better than they actually are and give the RE a time to shine in the meta. But after playtesting it, you can barely feel the boosted damage and it doesn't really make the time to kill any different. It went from 1.39 to 1.23 on red armored targets, not really anything special, so I can only really move it up with one tier with the hammer points. Next up we have our A tier guns. These are nice, clean, good to use guns, but they aren't quite getting into the OP spots just yet. This is the 3030, the Triple Take, the Alternator, the Hemlock, the Havoc, and Devotion, non-turboed, and Mozambique hammer points. First, the 3030. Marksman rifles are always amazing, and right now in terms of the mid to long range fights, they offer a lot of flexibility. And with the 3030 having two solid options for hop-ups, it has a ton of potential for support legends to level up Evo, pick people off, or just be a solid damage dealer to cover their team. I personally think the dual shell is a little bit of a better option because I always have a shotgun when running the 3030, but if you want to run it with Shadowcats and something like an SMG, then it isn't bad either. Now the Triple Take is much like the 3030 and there's not a whole lot to talk about with it. It did suffer a little bit from the slight nerf, but the projectile speed, flexibility of ranges, and all the other factors put this gun right here beside the other marksman rifle. This season also saw the return of the alternator to ground loot. Now me personally, I was a little upset because this was the perfect CP weapon, but on ground loot this gun has some solid damage and kill potential. It doesn't have the fastest time to kill around 1.4 seconds, so you have to be careful in most fights. But with its amazing to control recoil, you can be beaming in close to mid-range. And the Hemlock is the next A tier gun. This is one that just is overshadowed by all the other ARs in the game. The burst can really hurt, but the time to kill just isn't there. Early game this gun is fine, and white to blue armor is pretty easy to kill, but purple and red you're going to see some drop in TTK compared to other guns, leaving it here. And the next two guns in this tier I'm going to talk about together because it's basically the same reason. The Havoc and Devotion are both great guns with amazing killing ability, but without the turbo at the start of fights you are very vulnerable. The Devotion needs to spin up and the Havoc has that weird wind up. Both of these open you to getting one clip before you can really do anything, so no turbo, they're good but just lacking the OP spot. And now for the Mozambique hammer points, this gun is a huge sleeper OP pick this split. It has an insanely fast rate of fire with purple bolt and combos with hammer points so well. You can finish off a cracked armor opponent so quickly they have almost no time to react to it. It also has no movement penalty when ADSing, so you're able to strafe very quickly with it. Seriously, try this gun out and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the reason it doesn't go into S or S+ is it really lacks in the hard hitting damage that a shotgun should be able to do no matter if they have armor or not. You need to have them either no shield or very low shield in order to get maximum usefulness out of this, so if you're in a very tight situation it does drop off slightly and that's why it's A tier. Now, moving into our S tier guns, we have the Wingman, Mastiff, Peacekeeper, Turbo Devotion, Prowler, and Rampage. The Wingman starts the S tier off because it is a very solid gun, always has been and probably always will be. But the reason it's here and not S+ is because it's either hit every single bullet or you're useless. If you are a demon with the Wingman, you'll be doing well, but missing even a couple bullets in a fight can lead to you dying and less damage for your team to win off of. So because of the sort of bipolar nature of the gun, it stays S and not S+. Next, the Mastiff and the Peacekeeper. Both of these shotguns are still insanely good and very solid options for that up close oomph you need in games. They are together because right now they are basically even in terms of meta. It's just what one do you feel like you hit more shots with? Me personally, I like the Mastiff more because it feels better to me in bubble fights and I track a lot better with it. Now for the Turbo Devotion, this gun when fully spun up has the fastest time to kill in the game. It will be dropping people super quickly, but it chews through ammo, so if you don't have a purple bag with hundreds of rounds, you will be lacking slightly. It also still takes a slight delay to wind up at the start of a fight, and that can allow someone to get some lucky shots in while it ramps up, and you can get killed because of that, leaving it just S tier. Now for the Prowler, this gun on controller players is terrifying. I play versus a lot of the best players Apex has to offer when I play in tournaments and scrims, and I have to say, in the hands of some people, I am always fearing for my life when playing against a Prowler. The bursts hit really fast and can really mess some people up very quickly. If you're goated on the sticks, try this one in close range fights and never look back at another gun. And lastly, the Rampage. This gun did see some nerfs, but the damage is still very good. The reason it's S and not S+ is because the playstyle you need. If you don't have this gun ramped up with a thermite, you lose most straight up fights. You need to be in the back, not the front. You can't be the one that's getting shot in order to get usefulness out of this weapon. Because of that slight time to kill lacking ability, it is just in the S tier and not S+. But now our S+ guns. We have the Charge Rifle, the R301, the Havoc Turbo, and the Car SMG. The Charge Rifle is still so overpowered in the game right now. With Olympus being very open and having tons of sniper sightlines, having a Charge Rifle on a Gibraltar can be so amazing in poking, deterring teams from pushing, picking off and griefing fights, and so much more. And it's hit scan with great damage potential, and in the right hands, it's the most oppressive sniper rifle. And moving on with the Flatline now in the Crafter, the R301 is now the king of ground loot ARs. With the ability to carry fights with little to no attachments, this gun can put in work at all stages of the game. The 301 was always battling for spots with the Flatline, but now that it isn't ground loot anymore, there isn't that issue, and the 301 takes the crown as that best AR. Now the Havoc Turbo is here because this thing does shred with the turbocharger. It doesn't have that wind up to start off fights that can get you killed. I'm personally not a fan of needing a gold hop up to make a gun good, but this season the gold Havoc is in rotation and I've found a ton of them while playing, so it's a lot more likely to run into at least a turbocharger or a gold Havoc, so in this season I'm a little bit more confident putting this up here. And now the Car. This SMG is amazing, and with the Volt out of the way and in the care package, it has its time to shine. Great DPS, great one clip potential, and tons of options for attachments and ammo. The only issue is the recoil, but if you take the time to go and learn a little bit of it and use this baby up close, you'll be doing so much in fights that it's terrifying. But now you may be wondering where the care package and crafting guns are. Well, they aren't ground loot, so I can't really put them on a tier list like this. They are all in their own special category of broken tier. I just don't want to clutter the real tier list with guns that would all be S+ tier, so they have their own special slot off to the side. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. If you did, remember to smash that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with more of our Apex Legends videos. We do post daily. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you in the next one.